and welcome to Sunday Fun Day with the Crescent Lake Club. Mixing it up this week, and we're going a little bit newsy for you guys. It's me and Teets, and we're joined by the man that Twitter says saved the NBA season, Keith Smith, and he's here to chat some newsy stuff with us. So hey, everybody. Hope your Sunday is going great. So earlier this week, we heard the rumblings about 2 weeks ago that maybe Tokyo wouldn't be able to pull off the Olympics as planned. And of course, because Governor DeSantis in Florida is up for anything, the speculation started, could the Olympics happen in Florida? So I reached out to Keith, who basically, I'm just going to say, is the guy that came up with the NBA bubble concept. So, Keith, you want to tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll move on into the Olympics talk?
Sure, yeah. Well, for those who don't know me, I cover the NBA now, but before I did that, I worked for Disney primarily at Walt Disney World for nearly 20 years. I was started there as an intern on the college program and came back as soon as I was done with school. I worked at both Walt Disney World in Florida and Disneyland in California, and moved back and forth across the country a couple times. And then in February of last year, so almost a year ago, I left the company to cover the NBA full time. And about 3 weeks later, the NBA season shut down because of the pandemic. So my timing was nothing if not impeccable on that decision. But, as it happens. And then after, I would say it was about 2 weeks of when everybody was like, all right, this isn't a 2 week shutdown, this is going to continue for a while, I very much went into, all right, well, what is going to happen now with this season? We started hearing people say things like, well, they should all go to a private island and play there, or they should play on cruise ships. And I've been on plenty of cruises. That's just nonsensical. Was never going to make sense. And then it turned into, well, what if we did it in Las Vegas? And for those who may not know, the NBA brings Summer League to Las Vegas every year. The entire league is there. They play it at UNLV, and there are 2 gymnasiums and all that. But having been there a bunch of times, I knew Las Vegas is a real city. It's a little hard to kind of close it down and say this is just for the NBA in this area of town, or whatever it was you were going to try to accomplish. So immediately I was like, well, Disney's got gyms at Wide World of Sports. They've got a bunch of hotels that are sitting empty and all those kind of things. So I got with the team at Yahoo Sports and said, here's my idea. What do you think? And thankfully they said, let's run it. Let's see. And then it kind of blew up from there.
It really did snowball. It was so crazy because I remember hearing all the ins and outs of it and thinking, yeah, that would work. Yeah, that absolutely would work. That would work. And having been in Las Vegas for the last weekend of Summer League a few years ago, I completely was on the same train of thought with everyone else, that you had to try and find a way to make the Summer League and how they run that, but really kind of keep it under lockdown. And I know your original plan was more of like all-stars and all of the resorts really right by Wide World of Sports. It was the funniest thing. I think the only pushback people gave was they couldn't see LeBron James staying at like Pop Century or All-Star Movies or something like that. And I remember thinking, how are some of these guys going to even fit in those little beds too? Which is, I just remember, like when Shaq played for the Magic, it was a big deal that he had to actually have a custom-made like round bed, because otherwise every other normal traditional bed, he had to sleep sideways or his legs would hang off. Yeah. And so it's like, how is Giannis going to fit in a normal like Disney bed? The same thing of all things, you don't really think about until it's presented right in front of you.
At the time when I wrote that, I was really focused on keeping everybody as close to sports complex as possible. I figured, they would want to be as tight to the complex as could be. But then clearly they ended up going the Coronado Springs and Grand Floridian and Yacht Club route, and Coronado was really ultimately the perfect host for the duration of the event, because they also set up courts inside the conference center and those kind of things, convention center. So it really worked out well. I think better than anybody ever could have expected. And for those who don't follow, they didn't have a single positive test after everybody got there. So they had a couple people come that had coronavirus, and they showed up with it. They immediately isolated them and got that taken care of. And then for the remainder of the time, about 3 months period of time, they didn't have a single positive test the rest of the way. So I think it kind of proves that, if you can do a bubble and everybody's committed to it, it works. Now, it took a big toll on a lot of the players and staff and coaches and people like that. It was hard to be stuck in that one place for that long, as great as Disney is. And it was funny because I was talking to someone who said, my kids all the time say, I want to live here when we come for a visit. And he's like, no, you do not. We did that. But also, they weren't running around in theme parks all day and those kind of things. So a little bit of a different environment. But yeah, it worked out absolutely fantastic. And, I know, they could pull it off again if they needed to do any other kind of big event like that.
Yeah, we joked a bunch. Teets is a Bucks fan, and he was actually really concerned how the Lopez brothers would do, knowing that they were so close to the parks, but not being able to go. So it's almost just like looking through the window and seeing everything, but knowing you're so close, but you can't, go to the parks, and how that would all work out. Watching them set up those practice courts and all the convention centers was really cool because we've all seen the inside of a ballroom in a convention center, but just knowing what they were able to do logistically to bring everything in, it really opened up a world of possibilities. You never know what can happen there. And then I know towards the end of it, at least when the Pels were still in it for those glorious 5 days of games that they were still playing, towards the end they started getting food brought in. And I think one thing I've noticed, a change that I really do think the resort has adopted since the bubble, was installing those 5G towers everywhere, because I know the complaints for the players, they all play video games. That's their thing. And I know they set up the gaming lounges and all the player lounges. I follow Josh Hart on Twitch. He's also a Pelican, but he's big into streaming and playing, Call of Duty and all of that. And I remember the struggle with gaming on the Wi-Fi at Disney was real for all of them. So it's cool to see kind of some adaptations. So, which brings us to the next thing. The Olympics right now, Tokyo, the IOC says Tokyo is still in position to host it. Japan is saying otherwise. Ron DeSantis has said, come on, Florida will do it. But I remember, growing up in Orlando, I remember all of the World Cup affiliations that Orlando, and in a very small part, Disney had. I had completely forgotten that back in 1998, Orlando and Disney was part of an Olympic bid with Tampa for the 2012 Olympics as the I-4 corridor Olympics. So they would use things like what was then called the Citrus Bowl, which is now Camping World Stadium, some of the facilities at Wild Water Sports. I think 2012, they were still assuming baseball was going to be an Olympic sport. So having the baseball complex there was huge. Also, Tropicana Field, you could retrofit for different things. So the concept of having the Olympics in Orlando is not a far-flung one, I don't think. What do you think, Keith?
Yeah, no, they were part of that proposal. They were part of one years before, towards, I believe it was when Atlanta got the Olympics, and Disney had talked about building the Wild World of Sports complex then. And one of the things that was discussed was, well, we could fast track building that and really make that the kind of Olympic village, if you will, and we can do that around there. And the idea, I think, then was whatever housing we build for the athletes will turn into hotel rooms and the like. And we've got all the hotels possible here. And there was tie-ins to starting the light rail to be built up at that point in time, and that's now finally come in this direction after years and years of hearing about it.
So, it feels like forever.
Yeah, decades almost. But so that was part of that way back then. And then there was that combined proposal with Tampa where they were going to do, like you said, the I-4 corridor Olympics and all that. And I think if it was what Disney does better, I think, than just about anybody else, is throw them a situation and they're going to react to it and kind of make it happen as best as they're able to. And I think what we've seen now with this Olympics is, if it becomes a situation where, all right, we can't do it in Japan and it's not going to happen in Tokyo, but we don't want these athletes to miss out because it's not feasible to push it back another time. From everything I've read, it'll just get canceled, and there just will not be a Summer Olympics in this cycle because of just all the preparation and time it takes for the athletes. They having lost last summer really hurt them, and now they're kind of having to redo their training cycles and all that to get themselves in preparation to be ready to go for this round. So I think, Disney could step in. Now there's certainly things Disney doesn't have. They don't have an aquatic center on property, but there is one,
right down I-4.
That's it. Yep. Right down the way. You have right on Disney property. You've got all the athletic fields. You could want, like you said, the Citrus Bowl or Camping World stadiums there. You've got UCF Stadium. It's not uncommon for the Olympics to be, although one city hosts them, to be spread out in multiple venues all over the place. You've got the Amway Center for anything indoor that you might need if the Disney indoor facilities aren't enough. You've even got the National Training Center out in Claremont, which is a big training center. Yeah, and you've got track that you could do out there. You've got more soccer fields. That's actually where our daughter plays a lot of her soccer. So they're out there. There's a big gymnastics center out there as well. So I think the Orlando vicinity, especially right around Disney, is well positioned if it had to be, let's do this. Because the other thing you need space. You need about, the average Summer Olympics has between 18 and 20,000 people who are housed between athletes and trainers and coaches and staff and everything like that. So in 18 to 20,000 people, that's nothing for Disney. That's, a handful of resorts and off you go. And they're housing the Olympic Village, which is essentially college dormitory style. A little bit nicer than maybe, the college dorms I was in back in the day, but, that's really what it is. So it's not anything better than a Disney hotel room. And Disney has shown, as they did with the NBA players, they'll pull all the furniture out, all the regular furniture. They'll bring in special beds and whatever equipment they need to bring in. They'll set rooms aside as massage rooms and training rooms and whatever else needs to be done. So I think logistically that this is something that Disney could do because they're still not at full capacity, and it's probably going to be a while before they're at full capacity in need of all those resorts and hotel spaces.
Yeah, especially you still have all three All-Stars, which are, I couldn't tell you the occupancy, but if I just had to guesstimate, it would make up a good portion of the rooms that you would need for an athlete's village for the Olympics. And like what we saw, and I don't think really got talked about enough, is what Keith mentioned, is that they were able to retrofit and bring these different things into the hotel rooms. So, if you're staying if you've stayed at Disney, you know that if you need a microwave or a refrigerator, you're usually just going to get those in a DVC villa. They're not readily available in traditional hotel rooms. But for the guys in the bubble, especially at Coronado Springs, they were able to make sure that you were able to get a microwave and a fridge in your room because a lot of them had special dietary needs and just their traditional routine. A lot of the NBA guys are big wine drinkers, and so they also sit their own wine fridges to store their wine in there. So that was a really fun experience during the bubble, is to see them all get together in the team room and share wine. And what you saw on Instagram is how crazy they are about wine.
Yeah. I thought it was fun too. The guys, they were there, some of them only days, and then you started getting regularly between 80 and 100-inch televisions delivered to the property. And what's really wild is the number of them that then left them when they left, and it was just do what you do with them, Disney. That was it. They just left them behind because I guess when you're making $10 million buying a $300, that's nothing, right? You might as well just leave it behind for people. So it was that part was really fun. But Disney is well set up. I looked it up. Between the value resorts, if that was the direction you wanted to go, you're almost there in rooms. You're pretty close, and if you added Coronado to that, you're pretty close too. So I think it is really interesting that you can go get there with the rooms done. And then the other thing that becomes interesting is in the history of the Olympics, they spend a lot of money these cities do to build these venues, whether it be the sporting venues or the housing in the village for the athletes. And then the
Yes.
idea is always to turn around and turn the village into apartments and rent them. And they don't end up doing that well with the rentals because they end up a little pricey, or the people are like, these are more dorm style. They're not really set up as apartments with, kitchens and everything else you need to, truly live. And it costs them, ends up costing the organizers in the city in the end a lot of money on those. So that's a problem Disney doesn't have, right?
Well, and
You
especially
just,
since,
keep
the Olympic athletes' villages are usually located very close to some of the major stadiums, like what they use for the opening closing ceremonies that are literally just built for the Olympics and are left to kind of fall into disrepair. We really saw that in Beijing with the Bird's Nest. I want to say the swimming venue are
a lot of them are like that.
Yeah. And so that's one thing. It almost not that the IOC is looking for a deal, but it almost becomes cost effective for them to already use things that are in place and that maybe just need some quick retrofits to maybe work, but that the infrastructure is also already there. The city's not having to shell out a ton of money. That'll hurt their kickbacks because it still is the IOC. But I think honestly, you could use all of the values, probably take over Caribbean Beach and Riviera to shut off the Skyliner access at that point, since the hub is pretty standalone to go to the parks. I'm trying to, because they're calling that little hub at the Grand Central Station of the Skyliner. And then, so you've got all the All-Stars, Pop, AOA, Caribbean Beach, and we still haven't seen either of the Port Orleans resorts open back up. And they're also pretty insulated too, away from everything. You don't have kind of wandering through access. So you really could bubble people or media or dignitaries, just generally anywhere. And I think that probably certainly puts you over the top at that point on just resort rooms within 10 square miles, if that. You wouldn't even need Flamingo Crossing or any of the Marriott properties or anything like that.
Yeah, and if they really pushed it, you then just work with your partners right around to say, hey, we need to do something else, like they did with Swan and Dolphin for the MLS.
For the soccer.
And
that's there. And that's the one thing that we haven't really touched on is we all know about the success of the NBA bubble. Now, MLS got off to a little bit of a rocky start, but after those first 2 or 3 weeks when they got their testing under control and their quarantine, the resort was hosting both the NBA and MLS at the same time. So these are two pro sporting leagues that the resort and the property, with help from Marriott, was able to accommodate to the fullest extent. And that's something that I don't know that any other place could do it as quickly as Disney and Marriott was able to turn that around.
And I think that speed, that speed is what's, I think, of the paramount importance here, because it's the end of January, right? So you're talking the end of July is when these athletes will start to arrive. So really 6 months from now. And that is not a lot of time to put things together, and certainly not enough time to build anything or anything like that. So that part I think is absolutely huge. And that's where, again, this is I think a lot of people this was the NBA being there, and then Disney was the weirdest crossover of my worlds in my life that I've ever had. But what I can say is what was really cool about it was seeing the NBA people learn about Disney and just how big Walt Disney World is. They didn't have the concept of, wait, but the theme parks are open. And it was funny to explain to them, Magic Kingdom is a 20-minute car ride from the sports complex, and that, and it's not very few people are going to be driving that anyway. And then sports complex has about a half-mile driveway down into it, so they block it out by the road. You're not getting down there.
We know that because we've done the marathon a bunch, and that's like the worst.
Yep. So you've got that part of it, right? And then in just trying to explain to people, hey, the sports complex is huge, and then how many people I talked to who have been to Walt Disney World multiple times, and we're like, I never knew this sports complex existed. And my point was, well, if you're just coming on vacation, you have no reason to ever go there. You're dropping your bags in your room and you're running around the theme parks, all weekend. That's all. You're all week. That's all you're going to do. You're only going to the sports complex if you've got a reason. But once you get there, you realize, holy cow, this place is enormous. And then the NBA guys, seeing them say, man, like I never knew how big Disney was. It's funny. Then everybody kind of teasing Brooke Lopez because he has the house over in Golden Oak, of like, hey, why aren't we just staying at your place and those kind of things. So yeah, there was a lot of fun, but I think, I think Disney is, again, like they were for the NBA and the MLS, they're uniquely positioned to be a big part of this. They need some support, like we said, from some partners to make this happen. But it's the Olympics. It would be a once in a lifetime thing to make happen. And again, as you mentioned a couple times, the governor is, full. Let's bring everything here. Whatever we got to do. That's it, right? And he's got no. There's a. I'm trying to be nice about the way I put this. There's just no real. He just, let's just do it. Right. Let's just make it happen. Right, wrong, or indifferent. We're in. We'll make. We'll do this thing, and and right in the area, they're going to host the Super Bowl next week, and just down the road in Tampa. So yeah, a lot of things are going on here, and it's again, Disney is set up to do a lot of this stuff. None of it is easy, but as easy as it can be.
Teets, what are your thoughts?
I think
so. Teets is in full disclosure, I'm not a huge Olympics fan, but I think that comes from being, a sports journalist in a former life, and the Olympics can be kind of a fun / beating. Teets is a super huge fan of the Olympics. Even in our chat messages before Courtney and I talked about this last week, he was really distraught at the thought of no Olympics, and these athletes, like you touched on, Keith, train really hard, and this is a moment of a lifetime for them. And I think ultimately Teets is going to want to know how he can watch the Olympics. That's Disney, if I had to guess.
I mean, yeah, I would be all in if it was, all at Disney, but I'm still, I don't think, as with obviously the governor being in, and I'm not so sure how sold Disney themselves is on it. But obviously you have to have Japan and Tokyo officially say we are not having it too. But I'm not sold that it would actually happen if we get to that point.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's more likely they just get canceled. As sad as that is, I think you have a part here where Disney hosting, let's call it even 1,000 people at the peak for the NBA. That was one thing. Hosting, this would probably be, my guess is 50 to 60,000 people, because you've got,
spectators.
And who knows about the spectator? I mean, it's Florida, so they'll probably want people to be there. But it's, but even if they don't go that way, because you have the athletes, all the staff that need to take care of them from just their side, then you've got clearly, all the Disney folks coming and going. You've got a lot of TV partners, because again, the NBA, it's broadcast here in this country, and then they use their own stuff to send it to other countries around the world. The Olympics, they bring their own crews in from everywhere. It's, they all are, on site. And of course that could tweak and change, but yeah, I think it's, far less likely that it happens. But if you told me the NBA finals would be played in a gym at the Wide World of Sports complex ever, I would have laughed at you. And, and that was after I wrote the article. that they should do it. Yeah, I would have said that it's never going to happen.
Like
You
in
know,
your
but,
in your
you know,
in your wildest dreams, you never thought you'd see LeBron hoisting the Larry O'Brien in the field house.
yeah,
Am I right?
exactly. Yep. Yeah, with Mickey in the background, you know,
With
waving.
Mickey in the background.
Yeah. Yeah, I never, you know, yeah. It's funny because I told people that. I said, yeah, I wrote it, but I never expected it would actually happen. It was more of a, hey, here's a fun idea. You know, well, what do we think? And then, you know, but yeah, it's one of those things where when you look at it on its face, it seems crazy, and it probably is. But then when you actually get into logistically, could it happen? You knock out a major hurdle right away by saying, yeah, it could happen.
Yeah, like we said, the infrastructure is already there. They've already known how to service athletes, and I can't speak to MLS athletes. I'm sure they're quite discerning as well. But when you get down to some of these NBA guys and the different foods, like their food and drink regiment and their workout and training room regiment and all of that kind of stuff. And Disney was able to accommodate everything they needed. So when you've got, $100 million athletes, and they're really, at the end of the day, their only complaints were the TV wasn't big enough and the internet wasn't fast enough, then maybe it could work. It's infrastructure is really just the biggest thing. And we've now pinpointed all the different things around. They do have an Olympic swimming facility that is literally 3 exits down I-4. It's right before Sand Lake. I grew up off of Apopka Island and Sand Lake. So for all of you, oh yeah. So for all of you guys that go to Universal that are watching the stream, that are Universal fans or have visited, if you've ever, when you rode Dueling Dragons when it still existed, or if you've gone on Jurassic Park River Adventure, Tweedle 111's favorite ride at Universal, when you see the high school right there as you're going on any of those lift hills, that's where I went to school. So, I used to hear dinosaurs in my senior English class from Jurassic Park. So yeah, grew up in the whole area. But it's so cool to even just speculate that something like this could happen. It would be interesting to see seal the deal, if they would partner with the convention center or even Universal for anything else, since we know that just this week, the National Cheerleading Association and Pop Warner decided to move their annual festival tournament. I think it's tournament. We'll just go with it.
Yeah, it's like their playoffs.
Yeah, it's like their playoffs from what had traditionally been held at Wide World of Sports for, I don't know, 30 years. I mean, it's probably since it was still being held there when I was in high school. So to Universal, and football is now going to play at Camping World Stadium, which is the old Citrus Bowl for those of you playing along at home. So that opens up a world of possibilities into the summer and the fall and early winter at Wild World of Sports for different events. Anybody have any ideas on what could possibly fill that space there?
Well, I'll tell you, I know, it's probably not for this cycle, but one of the things is the NBA wants to do a mid-season tournament of some sort. And a big part of why Disney wanted to do the bubble, and now they're hosting the G League, which is the NBA's minor league. They're there now, and they're going to play their season at the Wild World of Sports complex over the next month and a half or so, was because they wanted to show, hey, if you ever want to do this in-season tournament, have it here. And it's not a hard sell, right? It's leave your cold weather cities and come to Florida for a week, and what would normally be at a normal time, mid-February, come down here and hang out for a week. And there's a lot of the players who like all the cross-marketing opportunities with Disney and those kind of things. So that's something there. But I think next year you're going to see them, depending on where we're at in the fall, especially where they've got all these openings now. It wouldn't surprise me if they push to get something going on with college football, maybe on the sports complex campus. The Bucks did training camp there for a long time, so I think they could definitely do something there. And then I think you could also see them push to get do more college basketball there in the early part of their season and bring a bunch of teams. And there was a talk of doing a bubble there, and then college basketball decided, yeah, we're going to kind of push through ourselves. And now I know a lot of the college teams are regretting that they're not happy, and they're going to do their March Madness. The NCAA tournament's all going to be at one site in Indianapolis. They're going to do it all there. So I think you can definitely see Disney get involved more in sports, because I think now too, the other thing that's brought to light for all these places is, wait a minute, Disney can do this. Wow, we could have, this year and that year. We know it's been big in the AAU world for years and years, but I think you're going to see them, get some extra business from others out of this as well.
Yeah. And, the other thing was Disney hosting at Wild World of Sports the training sessions for the Pro Bowl, even though the Pro Bowl was played at Camping World. I even before the pandemic, it was such a fun time to see all of the, obviously we all like the NFL, see all the NFL players that we love that were at Disney, and they would go work out for the Pro Bowl with everybody. And then you'd see them, in the parks and doing all that fun stuff with their kids afterwards. And I think that when you bring up the, mid-season tournament for the NBA, I think that's something that is kind of sticking in the players' minds, because if it's not a bubble, if it's after the pandemic, when their family and friends and extended family can kind of be around for a long weekend, like an all-star game or something like that.
Yep.
It makes it worth it to make the trip with more people, because your family can go and do all of those different things. Like Drew Brees took his kids to both build those little robots that Teets loves in Star Wars Land, and lightsabers. I remember seeing him after the last Pro Bowl he stayed at Yacht Club, by the way, pushing the big, luggage trolley, and all you just see is boxes of droids and like 6 lightsabers. And I'm like, okay, so Galaxy's Edge made bank off for the Breeze family this weekend, but they can't be the only ones. So that's the other thing that I think is really fun to think about. But yeah, the college options are so great, because it still is what Teets always talks about. He's a huge Wisconsin Badgers fan, and we don't hold that against him. But, he always talks about the Rose Bowl is a big deal for people who get to play in it. But some of these destination games and destination tournaments they really are huge, especially for smaller schools or early athletes, freshmen, sophomore, first year, 2-year athletes in college programs. It would be fun to see more college sports at Disney, and we've seen that it can work.
Yep.
Teets, would you go see the Badgers play at Wild World of Sports?
No, definitely. It's an excuse for a Disney trip, so of course I would.
He would also buy all the merchandise, all of it.
They've got that part of it too. I mean, they weren't even fans allowed at the NBA games, and they went into an even deeper. They already had a pretty good relationship where there was a Disney branded NBA merchandise, but they went crazy after the bubble. And I have a ton of friends and family, and then fans who've just reached out, and they're like, I bought that because I thought it was kind of neat. I always wanted a Mickey Mouse shirt with a Celtics logo on it or whatever it was, and people bought all that stuff up. And the same thing with the players. It was funny because Jason Tatum of the Celtics talked about when his son got there, he had to buy him all kinds of toys and everything else, because he was like, he's here at Disney. And it was the hard thing, because for the older kids, it was hard. A lot of the players were like, wait, why can't we go to the parks? And I was like, because there's a pandemic and you can't. Like, if you're here to see me, not run around the park. So some of those guys didn't even bring their kids. And a lot of them said, yeah, all I got out of this was I came here, I was here for 3 months to play. And now I got to bring the family back when everything's back to normal and spend a lot of money, because the kids are like, you got to be there for 3 months. I want to go back for at least a week. So yeah, I think you've got that in the Olympics. I mean, they're, as much as we want to think it's the spirit of amateur athletes competing at the highest level, it's a money-making endeavor. And then them and Disney together, they would partner up. The one challenge I see with the Olympics is an NBC property. So that would be interesting to see how they make that relationship work, because it was one thing for TNT with the NBA bubble to work with Disney and the NBA and ABC, ESPN.
Yeah.
They're good partners anyway. They do a lot of cross promotional stuff as it is, but the Olympics is NBC's baby, and they spend a lot of money to host it. The Summer and Winter Olympics. So I would be very curious to see how they would work with Disney on that, because that's their kind of cash cow every 4 years, is especially the Summer Olympics. So I'm very interested to see how that would play out.
So, and that's kind of why I was wondering if it became, what do we need to bring in to make this work? If they brought in Universal as some kind of resort partner, since Universal is partnered with NBC, if it would kind of make it work, because we all know that the NBA was an easy fit because they already had the relationship because of ABC and ESPN and the short-lived NBA experience at Disney Springs, RIP. I think I was the only one that actually went to that. I got a Pels Magic Band. All right, Keith went.
We went a couple times as a family. Me and my daughter loved it. We had a blast. Now we're a little more inclined to like it. So, I get that part though.
I liked it though.
I did too.
I got a Pels Magic Band and it was awesome. But yeah, that's why I think that if it came down to it, it would be a partner that, again, they all want to make money. All these theme parks have been struggling in the pandemic. And if we have to swallow it and shake hands and work together for this one thing that can help our balance sheet go black for the summer quarter, when we're not sure if vaccines are going to really be available and how much travel is going to look, and set you up for a positive Q4 and show that also we can host even bigger events. We don't need Tampa or Miami or Jacksonville or anything else. We can actually come together and do all of this here. I think that would, to me, if I was in the C-suite making that decision, it would be a no-brainer for me. I just want to make sure that my company would get a cut, but so the one more thing about the bubble, Teets thinks he could have made it the entire time.
Yeah,
he thinks he could have lived. He thinks he could have lived in the casitas at Coronado Springs the entire time.
Probably.
Of course. Why not?
I could have. I would have missed my family. That would have been the hardest part, especially knowing they were only about 15 minutes down the road.
I was going to say like 5 miles away.
That's what I said. I said I would run out to the fence and they could have drove by and I'd wave at them through the fence, and that would have to be good enough. But yeah, I definitely could have. I don't leave the house anyway, even pre-pandemic. I just stay home as it is, so I definitely would have been fine.
Yeah, I think it's. But see, what I don't think Teets realizes is that if he was in the bubble, he could go watch basketball, which is not his favorite sport, but he couldn't really go to the parks, which is what he ultimately wants to do. So I think he would be like a Lopez brother, and
Yeah.
it would be a real struggle. It was funny seeing a lot of the stories about food and different things. And again, that's another thing that I feel like for the most part, Disney was able to really handle, just the sheer amount of food that they had to bring in and make sure was prepared safely, delivered to rooms, or for people to go and pick up from the conference centers.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that they know they can do for the Olympics, and hopefully for future events, they won't have to, because we won't have to worry about some of the effects from the pandemic. But all right, any other Olympic related things? So you guys are both long shot Olympics to happen in Florida in 2021.
Yeah, I definitely am.
Do you feel more or less confident than you did about the NBA bubble?
Oh, less, far less. No, not even close. And I wasn't very confident in the NBA bubble.
It was great when I tweeted out the announcement, what we were talking about on today's show. We Keith and I got a retweet from someone that says, if Keith Smith saves both the NBA season and the Olympics, he is a legend. So,
I can't take any credit for the Olympics one. That's not me at all.
we're reaching out. The Crescent Lake Club will send it out. And, if you get calls or they call Disney, you never know. Like, DeSantis is all about it. So, all right. Well, Keith, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
We really appreciate you. We may have you back on if this Olympics thing takes off or other sporting events take off.
Sure. Once we have details, we can talk logistics. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Awesome. And if you ever want Disney stories, I'm more than happy to share those as well.
Yeah.
20 years, I've got a few.
Well, we do, which is great. I'm going to promo our next week's show. It's going to be our first Sunday of a dip into the Crescent Lake Club archives. And I've got a whole bunch of my friends from Magic Kingdom, and we're going to be talking about Spectro Magic. So I will definitely hit you up for an archives episode.
Awesome.
Especially because you have so much history at Disney. So
yeah, I'd love it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Bye. All right. Have a good one.
Have a good one.
You too.
Teets, what are you doing?
Just still recuperating from the shoveling today.
So from shoveling, I don't have to do that here. So I want to pick your brain before we go offline about some newsy stuff this week. I'm sure you've got some hot takes on some things. Do you want to get it off your chest and talk Jungle Cruise?
Sure.
So tell our followers.
Well, obviously, if you have not heard, Disney has announced they are going to be not redoing, but updating the Jungle Cruise, changing up some scenes, removing some of the current storylines and putting in some new ones, and changing up the jokes and stuff. Obviously, I think compared to the Splash Mountain news, this one was a little bit. People took this one more well than the Splash Mountain redo. I think because it's not so you're not sticking an IP into it. So Disney fans love to criticize the IP driven changes, and this one will not have any IP additions, which is kind of interesting considering they have a Jungle Cruise movie coming out, and Disney was very. They were in the article that they released. They said we are not including the Jungle Cruise movie in this. So I thought that they were very particular about that. But overall, I'm not opposed to it. I think from what I've seen so far, I'm okay with it. There's nothing I have against it or anything. So I'm interested to see what they do.
Would you be mad if Trader Sam at the end got switched with The Rock?
Well, I don't think that's going to happen, but I do expect Trader Sam to leave altogether.
What are you hearing from your sources?
That is where the new animated skipper or animatronic skipper will be placed.
What else you got that you're holding out on us with?
Well, that's all I got on that.
What else? So you're holding back some other breaking news you haven't shared with us. We're your friends.
No, nothing that I don't think we haven't really discussed before. There's been some talk about Fantasmic coming back. I think,
is it going to be for my birthday?
Well, maybe that could be a possibility. That actually is a possibility.
I could get Raft and Raptor and Fantasmic for my birthday.
I don't know any specific dates or anything, but there's been a lot of chatter that they're working out how to, because a lot of the backstage areas are obviously not socially distant. They're not made to be socially distant. So they're working how to make sure cast are safe and all that kind of stuff. Because I think in terms of guests being in the stadium, they can work that out pretty well. It's open air. It's large. They can get guests in and out of there.
Just drop those stickers down
really
to separate everybody like they do everywhere else.
It's really the big problem is figuring out the cast member logistics. So I think they're targeting that. I think that will be the first nighttime show that returns.
So to follow that up, hey, did you make those wood stand-ins of the three caballeros in Grand Vista?
I did, but I probably could have. I mean, that's pretty similar to what I've done before. So,
so cringe. So yeah. Do you have any details on what's going on with that? Are they ever going to use the screen that's behind there?
Well, that's what I was kind of. I understand why I didn't just leave them out and then use the screen, because the screen's still there. They didn't take it out, so I don't know why they just didn't go back to that in the meantime. I've heard that the Caballeros are coming back, so that's being told to cast members on the hub. So that's a confirmed thing. That they're coming back in the spring. I don't believe there is a specific date, but they're scheduled to come back.
So next up, it's unfortunate that she's not here because, well, actually, it's unfortunate that three people aren't here because they care about it the most. And it's the first time ever in y'all's entire life that people want to see a rat in a restaurant. And that would be the opening of the Ratatouille ride at Walt Disney World. You got any tips for us on that?
Well, I keep hearing March, so I'm expecting they'll open it around that time when spring break starts. So probably mid-March-ish, around there. I've heard we could see some soft openings late February, early March too, depending on how things go. I mean, that's basically ready to go.
It was really interesting that cast members were suddenly blocked out for a week this week leading into Valentine's Day for just Epcot, right?
Actually, it's all four parks.
Oh.
But it is weird that it's not. I could see, President's Day or whatever them all being blocked out, but like they're blocked out for like a whole week or whatever. It's like I didn't really understand. I guess that they must be really expecting the crowds that they had to block them out for the entire week. But
it's kind of like gold being blocked out for my birthday.
Yeah.
Which is weird too, which makes me think something. But we know it's not going to be Tron because that's boarded up like a busted ass shack. We know it's not going to be Guardians because, again, that looks like the boards they just put up on the frontage of it today, which I know works is still going on inside Guardians.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that one's probably going to maybe come close to making. We have no idea about the space restaurant. And we probably won't. I thought we'd hear more about that because it's patina operated, but no. But what did we hear about this week? The thing I want most, and that is
Raptors.
What is it?
Are we talking about Raptors?
We're talking about give me that Raptor. So we still don't have a date on it, but Universal's Twitter account this week released some official details about the roller coaster that we all knew was being built, but they just told us about 6 weeks ago was actually happening. And that, I mean, that's pretty fair, right? It's been underway for like 18 months. And that's the Velocicoaster. And so it is taking place, it's being built in a weird area, kind of close to, well, it's where the old Triceratops meet used to be. It's down by the water, by the big visitor center. I just know that we saw the construction going on because Teets is really sad that the gates open. He's like, let's wait. because yesterday they brought in like 3 Raptors. I'm like, okay, we'll wait. And then it was just a generator trailer that got pulled into the construction site, and so he was super disappointed. But we knew this was going to be kind of an epic coaster. Tell us what's the news. What have they been doing? What have they been testing and filming at Velocicoaster while I pull up all the details about it?
Yeah, well, just this week they started testing with actual people. You saw a couple of trains with just like a handful of people in them. And then they were filming, it appeared to be commercials because they were all maskless. So they're obviously preparing for the post-pandemic era. But yeah, and now I believe as of yesterday, they were testing with multiple trains on the track, where prior it was just one train per run.
So I'm going to share my screen real quick because I want to show here we go. Everything you wanted to know from the official Twitter account of Universal Orlando. And it's a multi-stream thread. It says coming in the summer of 2021. In my head, April is summer because it's already like 90 by then. Next up, we've got, are you ready to learn more? I'm always ready to learn more. It's a new species of roller coaster. Feel the rush of the hunt. Yes, I believe I'm a velociraptor, so I want to feel like a velociraptor. So yes, I am ready to race alongside my other raptor brethren. This is the coolest thing. So it's got 2 launches. So I want to say Hulk takes you from 0 to 40, maybe 0 to 50. But this one is also going to launch you again a second time. Teets is never going on this. Not when I go through the next things.
I know.
4 inversions, including an inverted stall upside down, weightless screaming. That means there's got to be raptors down below you, right? Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, I believe there's at least 8 raptors throughout, some in the queue, some in the ride.
$155 feet up, 80 degrees down, into the water. You know, for me as a roller coaster person, I also feel very safe being up high over water than like concrete structures. Not that it's going to make any difference. But there's just something about water when you're up that high and like zooming around that makes you feel a little bit more comfortable. I don't know. Well, Tees already has come face to face with a velociraptor, and that is me. Yes, Tweedle111, he is already nervous. The inversions, the launches and the inversions probably did it.
No, the launches I'm not so. It's the inversions and the stall that would be more nervous about than the launches.
The best was when we did. So I got to experience Hulk with Teets for the very first time, and how amazing was it? And also, how nervous were you? I'm trying to catch up on the chat.
I was pretty I was pretty nervous, I think. But obviously, I rode it twice thereafter, and
you're ready to go back the next day.
It was. I think the big thing that made it better for me is that it was a launch coaster versus like a chain pull up to the top or whatever. And so I think that's why I'd be more interested in riding Velocicoaster than some other coasters. But
so Hey, Run Eat Drink podcast. Sorry, I missed you guys up earlier in the chat. And yes, there should be an Olympics for eating and drinking around the world. We all would crush that. And that is life goals. Let's get that on the books for maybe this fall. We can probably try and do something, I think. And they're with you, stalled, and then face to face with a dinosaur. Angela's also saying no to face with dinosaurs, especially at Jurassic Park. But she has a personal experience with that, and can't wait until she rides River Adventure 10 times in a row for my birthday. I think she'll super, super love that. Yes, meet up and a drink. Let's do it. Rat. Oh, I said my hot takes. So Mardi Gras at Universal is coming up, and you guys know where I live, and like Mardi Gras is kind of my thing. I'm really curious to see how Mardi Gras goes. So there will be no parade at Universal for Mardi Gras this year. And instead they're doing like float installations around the park, and they're doing a new food festival, which sounds really exciting. And I looked through the menu, and a lot of the stuff looks really great. And they're touching on basically every country that has some kind of carnival or festival season throughout the year. I actually posed this question to Angela a couple of days ago. If I wonder, this really seems to be one of the first kind of food festival type things that Universal has put out. And I wonder if there is interest in it, if they would extend it past their traditional Mardi Gras days. What do you think, Teets?
Yeah, their Mardi Gras usually runs decently long already. But yeah, I'm interested to see how this goes this year. They've done some cool things throughout the pandemic with their Christmas and Halloween offerings, just to try to, at least have something going during the season. So I'm interested to see how well they do with this one.
Yeah, and if it somehow gets extended through my birthday trip, I would love to try it. I will not be trying any of the New Orleans food, just because I don't eat New Orleans food except in New Orleans. But some of the different offerings look great. And I do love to see that the spirit of Mardi Gras is really permeating the Universal fan base. Lots of things, like lots of people are making their own kind of merchandise, t-shirts and masks and different things like that. And that's really cool. And that's really what we're embracing here in New Orleans. We don't get to have parades this year. So we've turned our houses into floats, and we're doing art installations instead of parades, lots of things virtually. So it's really kind of cool to see that takeover. And Angela mentions that Universal really, especially at Islands of Adventure, well, at both of them, to be honest, has a better layout for a food festival type thing. Yeah, because World Showcase at Epcot has started to get so packed during the food festivals. I remember going to Food and Wine Festival back in early 2000s when there weren't booths. There were literally just like card tables set up with tablecloths and nice signs and everything to show you what it was, but none of the fun things that you see now, these permanent booths and different things. So it's really nice to see. We don't do SeaWorld, though I want to go see Sesame Street. But SeaWorld is doing their Seven Seas dining experience, their food festival. And locals have a lot of great things to say about that. Bigger concourse areas, water walkways. And I gotta be honest, we talked a little bit about Pop Warner and Cheer leaving Disney for Universal. They will have access to the Orange County Convention Center if they need it. But keep in mind, back before the pandemic and for the years, like they would shut down the Indiana Jones live show, and that's where in-park cheerleading competition would be. And so just to straight out think about Universal Orlando itself, you have the big band shell where all the concerts are for these festivals underneath Rip Ride Rocket with the green area. So you could have one cheerleading competition happen there. And then you've got the Fear Factor live stage that they used for Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure that also has the raised seating very similar, if not larger, than the Indiana Jones show at Hollywood Studios. And then you still have the Animal Actors Studio that you could use, and empty warehouses where they have installations for Halloween Horror Nights that they've already taken down. You have a bunch of, and then Blue Man Group is closing too. So you've got that entire arena for just cheer. And I think the Pop Warner kids being able to go and play at Camping World Stadium is awesome. If they're staying at Endless Summer because of the toll road, it's really just a 15-minute bus ride to get from Endless Summer to Camping World Stadium. So it's going to be something different, something crazy. It's going to be nice for people that traditionally want to go to Disney in the fall or early winter, not to have to deal with cheer and Pop Warner crowds, I imagine.
Well, usually cheer was always big in like spring, like April, May, there was a cheer, and then fall was the Pop Warner. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how the crowd's different during those times.
So, and this is something that Courtney and I are going to be touching on for Wind Down Wednesday, is we've got notice that there is something big coming up for people looking to book on February 16th, and what it could possibly be. And I have a feeling it's going to have a lot to do with what the fall and winter season at Disney is going to look like because of this Pop Warner departure. We already know that Disney is doing really great discounts on park days. So if you buy 3 days, you get 2 more days of tickets. So it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of that. You've got any speculation on that one, TT?
No, not really. I'm
not free dining. Y'all are never getting the back.
No, yeah. I'm wondering if, I'm just curious to see, I don't know if they're ready to do something in regards to the 50th yet. So I'm thinking maybe something before that, but because I think they're still trying to hold out on, before they would heavily discount October 1st. But we'll see.
What's your plan for the 50th?
To be at my house. I'd love to be there, but obviously October's not a great time for me to travel, that is.
Football.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's going to be some kind of stay and play deal that maybe like if you book 6 nights, you'll get 7 days of tickets for the price of 3 or something like that. I feel like they just have to get people into hotels.
Yeah.
Just have to. The occupancy is just so down. I keep looking at stuff for my birthday weekend too. Free vaccines with every boost purchase in the World Showcase. I don't think is going to happen. And the 216 announcement, I can almost guarantee is not a new Publix pavilion at Epcot. Also,
especially with
if
their
anyone,
negative press in the news.
right? Also, if anyone is looking to open a car rental company in Orlando, hit up Tweedle111 on Twitch. She's looking for some capital, a business partner, some vehicles. She'll run the whole thing on the ground there, but she just needs someone to help her start that up. Also, her comment about Olympic merchandise was she would love to see something that's not terrible like the "But Daddy, I Love Him" hat. Which I gotta see if I can swing by the outlet and pick that up over my birthday weekend for her. That'll be fun. So yeah, the only thing we didn't touch on, and I think Courtney and I will probably tackle that. We've got a Wind Down Wednesday coming up. I think it's going to be a fun one. This time we are tasting a Cabernet from Baseline Tap House. And on top of that, I'm going to do my first Make It, Don't Fake It and show you guys how to recreate the cheese and charcuterie plate from Baseline Tap House with stuff that you can find in your local grocery store. And most importantly, how to make what I call crack toast, those little crispy breads that come with the Baseline Tap House charcuterie plate that you just want to eat a million of. I figured out how to make those, and so that's what we're going to be doing. My birthday is April 11th. I will be turning 21 years old. For like the 19th time. So yeah, it's a big one for me. I think, yes, charcuterie from Baseline. I have perfected the way to recreate the Baseline charcuterie and cheese plate. It's all stuff that should be readily available. On top of that, Courtney found one of the red wines that is on tap at Baseline Tap House for us to taste. And we've looked, and it's also very readily available. I believe like $10 a bottle. So I'm really excited. 2015 Cabernet Sauvignon. So get ready for that. That's going to be this Wednesday at 8 o'clock. We're also going to have a happiest hour again at some point this week. And we'll talk more goofball news, check in. We'll see how our Olympic story is coming, because I think we're going to hear a little bit more about this before we can completely write it off. But on top of that, I've got another fake it or make it, don't fake it. And I'll have a video on tiki drinks. And we're going to start with how to recreate the Lamu libation from everybody's favorite Animal Kingdom lounge. I'm going to show you guys how to do that. Stay tuned on the date for that. And like I mentioned earlier when we were chatting with Keith, it looks like this Sunday is going to be our very, very first archive show. I'm really excited about this one. It's a parade that's near and dear to my heart. If you guys have heard me say repeatedly, I worked at Magic Kingdom in the 90s, early 2000s, and I'm going to be bringing together a bunch of my former cast member friends, and we are going to talk about Spectro Magic. It's just the first in a series of archive shows we've got. So hit us up on Instagram, Twitter, down in the comments on the pages. If there are other, things from Disney history you want us to talk about. We've got Keith, who is great, worked for Disney for 20 years, who's going to come in and talk about things whenever we're ready for him to. So also don't forget to follow us on Twitch and YouTube. When we get to a certain amount of followers, we're going to be doing a drawing for this guy. I bet he's not light ring friendly. The Figment Funko. And we've got some other fun things coming up. Teets, anything you're watching for this week in announcements from Disney?
Well, they like to surprise lately. You always get some unexpected news. I'm hoping it's just a week of positive news, not more negative news, things that they're taking away or getting rid of and stuff like that.
Like Trumpy Bears.
I don't think we're at that point yet. They just did Jungle Cruise. They don't. It's not like they're in a pandemic. They don't have all the money in the world.
Twitter one. We would. Oh my gosh! Yes, I'll reach out to you. We'd love to do a Wine Down Wednesday crossover. It's great. We talk about tasting, and we're really trying to dive into the accessible parts of the Disney Wine Vault. There's so many things that you guys have at the parks and you like, and we want to show you things that you can get at home and how to kind of pair it and recreate it, because, we're still kind of at home. A lot of people haven't been able to get to Disney, and so we want to be able to give you a taste of it. So that's why we're doing this whole Make It, Don't Fake It series. And yes, I'm on board with positive. I want to hear about Fantasmic and fireworks. I don't care about Rat. I just care about Raptor. Raptor's the top of the food chain. And you guys never responded. I sent you a picture of my favorite bakery here in town did ratatouille, and they even said in their Instagram caption, Remy didn't make it, but it's still good. Jerks.
I don't think I've never had ratatouille, so I can't.
Well, you don't like vegetables.
Sometimes.
I sat across from you and you ate a salad and you just ate the lettuce and left the avocado and the tomato and
I
the
don't like
cheese.
avocado. I usually eat tomatoes, but yeah, I don't know.
I know, I eat your tomatoes. Anything else? What about, do you have any updates on the Star Wars hotel?
No, Disney's been kind of quiet. I mean, they showed us what the rooms would look like, but they still are saying this year for opening, so I'm not sure. I mean, usually you'd think we'd get some news more, maybe like a, opening in the fall or opening, but they've just said 2021, so who knows, I guess.
And the only thing, we don't know anything about cruises and when they're coming back, but the new CDC guidelines will require that when cruises ever come back, masks will be required in basically any area except for your stateroom. Oh yeah, thanks Angela for that really great point. That Disney is now enforcing groups no bigger than 10. They're making you split up. We saw reports on Twitter that a group of 15 on Rise of Resistance was asked to split into 3 groups of 5. I think that's great. It goes along the lines with you're really not able to book tables bigger than 4 or 6 to dine, which is important to me since I have ADR day coming up in like 8 days for a birthday trip, I guess. Can I make all of my ADRs in one spot like normal, or do I have to do them every day?
I think it's like 60 plus 10. I think as long as I think it's like that. It should still be like that. Okay. And 2, also going along with the groups of 10, they also came out and put out a comment that if you have the vaccine, you still have to wear a mask. Just to make that Disney was, getting ahead of that and making sure that people don't try to take advantage of the system or whatever else. So
they are allowing those creepy clear face masks, though. Do you see that?
Yeah. I know I know like I know some teachers and stuff, like, people, teachers at school and stuff wear those for, kids that have hearing disabilities and stuff like that. So I think that's where those are beneficial, but
there's always going to be someone that's going to say it's going to be like pantyhose there instead of the clear plastic, which makes me feel like would be so hot underneath those things. Masks are already hot to begin with. But so that's what we're looking at. So thank you guys. Stay tuned. Like I said, we'll see you on Wine Wednesday. Amy and Dana, I'll hit you up and we can plan a Wine Wednesday in the future. I think we've got this week and we'll probably take, we'll talk. Maybe we can do a week from Wednesday when Courtney, or 2 weeks from Wednesday when Courtney is in Florida. I'll reach out to you guys. We've got Wine Wednesday. Stay tuned to see when we've got a happiest hour coming up this week. That's when we're going to talk tiki drinks, and Teets is going to bring you some training and some more news from Walt Disney World. And then Spectre Magic Archive show on Sunday. Thank you guys again so much. Thanks so much to Keith Smith for joining us. You guys follow him on Twitter, Keith Smith NBA. He is he's a wealth of knowledge on not only the NBA, but on Disney. And, just fantastic. I can't wait to have him on again to talk about more Disney history and Disney stories. Shout out to all of our friends and other club members who can be with us today. We see Angela in the chat, Courtney, Witty, Leslie. Everybody's dealing with something. Teets has to go shovel driveways again, I'm assuming.
Yep.
It's 75 and sunny here, so I'm going to go sit outside. But until next time, see y'all real soon. Bye.